Now, our next session looks at the mental health impact of the refugee experience, and we've already heard about that in schools and in the previous from the previous speakers. And now we'll be hearing from Gabriella, Brent, and Taiman, who bring personal experience, deep personal experience to our forum. Gabriella is a transpersonal counselor and psychotherapist with 15 years of experience implementing systemic models of care. She's the clinical lead and head of programs at Refugee Trauma Initiative, otherwise known as RTI, which was co-founded by the inspirational former Afghan refugee, Zalash Halamzai. Zalash just been nominated or listed as one of the BBC's top 100 women of the year, as has Baroness Helena Kennedy, who will be joining us later. So we've got two in the top 100 here at JRAN today. RTI works with local communities to develop empowering healing spaces for conflict-affected and displaced refugees in camps, in urban settings, and in their original countries as well. But we'll hear more from Gabriella shortly. Gabriella is joined today by Jawed, who was born in Kandahar in Afghanistan. He completed his education in England and France, and then spent 10 years in Afghanistan in various media settings, including making an award-winning documentary on children's drug addiction called Addicted in Afghanistan. He also worked on the Afghan version of Sesame Street, where he helped develop the first Afghan puppet known as Zari. If there's time, we'll hear more about that. Jawed now lives in Germany. He's been heavily involved in helping to evacuate his former media colleagues and family members out of Afghanistan. So, Gabriella, over to you. Lovely to see you, and look forward to hearing this session.
Thank you so much for that, that intro, David, and thank you for the invite to speak today. It's a great honor to speak and to follow the amazing women who have just presented to talk about their work. Can you just checking if you can, everyone can see my screen?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Jawed in a moment. We've been asked to speak about the kind of well-being needs of Afghan communities, some of the challenges, and then some of the solutions, or at least some of the things that we as an organisation have been responding with that we would like to share with you. So we've already been introduced. I thought, I don't know those that have seen this from the Refugee Good Action Practice last bulletin, but some really interesting stats that came out amongst many showed that in terms of self-reporting from the Afghan community coming to the UK, 81% are saying that emotional and mental health support is something that they really need. So it's great to hear about Hopscotch and NCG's work. And I think all the things being described, whether it's walks or more direct therapeutic support, are really important. But I'm going to talk a little bit later about how we try to do that in a way that is informed by the community and with and not for. But before that, I'm going to hand over to Jawed, who is hugely inspirational in so many different ways to share with us.
Thank you very much. I think, thank you very much for giving me the platform to speak. It's an honor to be amongst all of you. Just before, I have this video which says 10th August 2021, but before playing the video, I just wanted to say that I think it was, yeah, sometimes in 2002 that I came back from university and my mother asked me, would you go back to Afghanistan? I said, never, I don't think I'm gonna go back. I'm quite okay being in England, you know, doing my studies.
My glasses away. Can you see where it says blue?
10 years later, well, in 2010, I was in Afghanistan, and I'm going to continue talking about that, but I would like you to see this video. I don't know if, Gabriella, if you could. The reason I showed this video is the normality that I wanted to talk about. Before all the chaos that started to happen, the picture says it all. A young woman playing guitar on the top of a building, and you see the beautiful city of Kabul. And what happens within a few days, the chaos starts to happen. I have this strong connection with Afghanistan because I spent 10 years as they spoke about I was told during my introduction that that I spent most of my life in Afghanistan, 10 years of my life, and I worked in different media outlets. So I had a very strong connection with the country. And on the 15th of August, these three pictures describes very well what happened, the chaos of cars on the streets of Kabul, tearing apart of all documents and memorable photographs, and then people fleeing. So when chaos happens, of course, families and friends, everybody starts to separate. They don't get to see one another, and that's something that I personally experienced from the 15th of August onwards. And if next, could you go to the next slide, please? Sorry. Yeah.
This one, yeah.
Next slide. Sorry about it. Yeah, that's it. Why? No, the one before. Sorry, Gabriella.
No problem.
The second slide. Yeah. So we pretty much lost everything. Everybody lost everything in Afghanistan. We spent, or the Afghan people spent the 20 years after the fall of the Taliban to make a country for themselves, to make an identity for themselves, to have a sport, to be known in the cricket sport, to be known in football. In many areas, at all levels, we were recognized. You know, we had an identity, and on that day, on the 15th of August, we became a tag number on the arm. We became a crowd unwanted by the world. Our elders, our young people that had achieved so much, they had made a life for themselves, all turned into a backpack on the back of their shoulder, looking for a safe place to continue their life. I mean, you can imagine when you're sitting comfortable at your home today, and then the next morning you're thinking about leaving the country. Can you think of the psychological impact it can have on you? I mean, I was on the phone for the whole of those first week, talking to friends, talking to family members, and everybody was like they were totally devastated. They were looking for a way out. They wanted to leave the country because they could not believe, you know, that something like that would happen to them, and how their lives would be crushed. So that's something that happened to a lot of our people, and not only the psychological impact it had on the Afghan people inside Afghanistan, but myself, because I had such a strong connection with those people. Next slide, please. Here is just like two portraits that describes very well. On the right is a friend of mine, Mariam, who's a very active a TV presenter, journalist, and one morning before evacuation out of Kabul airport, and then another picture of an old man and woman, red carpet in front of them, but feeling homeless. This is what happened to a lot of Afghan people, because they lost their home, they lost everything that they had, as I expressed earlier, and they lost something that meant to them. I would say an identity that they had. They lost that identity, and they were not worthy of anything. They were not accepted by anybody. They didn't have a country anymore. There were days that I felt, although I'm here in Germany, living here now, and I have a British citizenship, but I have very strong connection with Afghanistan. The day that I saw the flag of Taliban rising over the streets of Kabul, it broke my heart, because I felt like I'm homeless again. That's how I felt personally, to be honest with you. And that's how hundreds of my friends who worked in different media outlets felt. And this is a kind of psychological trauma that not they went through, I had to go through with them. And it is still going on, because I'm heavily involved during the on the evacuation as well. And if we can go to the next slide, please. And these are like some of the messages that I wanted to post here, because some of my friends were posting for each other. You can see the strong connections people had within towards each other, that they wanted to kind of you know, be there for each other. But the messages that were exchanged here also are very sad, because it describes the life stories or events that happened to them, or the impact that it had to them, that they would be willing to do anything that had affected their life. And the last slide I think would probably sum up the whole kind of presentation of the same person on the 14th of August and then 16th of August. That's what happened to the entire Afghan nation, I would say. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that I just lost myself completely, because it's bringing a lot of bad memories. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jawad Jan, for sharing with us, especially when it is so impactful, talking about your own experiences and that of so many loved ones and of your country. So thank you, Jawad, for also setting the scene, just to describe why at RTI we've been doing some of the work we've been doing over the years. So I'm just going to do a very brief kind of whistle-stop tour through what we do as an organisation, and then focused on how particularly we're supporting Afghan communities, and particularly organisations working with Afghan communities. So David didn't mention that him and Jenny were a co-founder of RTI back in 2016, along with Zolasht. And mainly what we do as an organisation, having directly delivered work in camp and urban settings over the last 6 years, is train and capacity build other organisations, mainly grassroots organisations and refugee-led organisations, to set up community spaces which where collective healing practices and activities take place. And Zolasht, as David mentioned, was a refugee herself from Afghanistan. Across our board and team are people with lived experience, and those of us who, like many people in this forum, have ancestors and close family members who were refugees as well. So we have an early childhood focused program, a youth program. We do work with supporting humanitarians in terms of well-being for them. And we also run therapeutic groups, which I'll talk more about shortly. And very linked to what has been shared previously, the kind of key pieces underpinning our work, whatever we do, are a set of core values, which are respect, understanding, curiosity, and connecting. And curiosity is really, really important here, as it links to identity-informed practice, which is not presuming ever that we know, but wanting to find out and discover with respect, not thinking that what we've read in the news or seen is, you know, every person's experience, but finding out what somebody's personal experience is, which is going to be different from person to person. Everything we do is designed to be trauma sensitive. However, we don't assume that people are traumatized because we don't want to project that onto them. We know that different experiences affect people differently. But we do recognize that the impact of, you know, living in war and conflict, fleeing it, and living in countries like it's being described in the UK, where there's huge disarray, but also a huge amount of hostility, xenophobia, racism, sexism, Islamophobia, whatever it may be, can also be traumatizing. And so all of our programs are designed to help to find safety in the body and to regulate from trauma, but in direct ways, unless it's the therapeutic groups. We will share these slides after, so I'm just going to whistle through them, but these, you know, in these community spaces, what we really want to do is build a sense of belonging, a sense of community, a place where people can come and meet with other people who may have shared experiences, people who may have different experiences, who speak the same language, to really help people to feel more resourced, to have fun, to laugh. You know, it might be a long time since someone has had a moment of laughing or even having some respite, and it might be that this space, be it a drop-in centre or a knitting group or a community space, may be somewhere that people can come to do that, and it may be the only space they can have amongst everything else that they're navigating. And I think relationships, as has been described by colleagues, are really at the heart of everything. You know, there's a huge amount of practical things happening, from basic needs and advice and legal support and food, but having people that care and show care, I think, is one of the things that can make the biggest impact and can remind people, or all of us, when we are feeling hopeless or very low, that there are people around us that care, which I know the JRAN Forum is full of. So just briefly touching on specifically what we're doing in terms of supporting Afghan communities. These are all related to what we already do as RTI, but we've been fast tracking or delivering short form versions of what we do to try and support as many organizations as possible. And you know, a big reason we do this is to help people in the present, and it's also because we recognize at RTI, and I know many people in this group who have family histories of being refugees, know about the transmission of trauma across generations, and so we want to support people in real time. We also want to support people who are currently parents, you know, children, and just to kind of alleviate some of the long-term impacts of trauma and distress. So one of the bigger programs that we're doing is we've been fast tracking our usual 2-year training capacity building program over 6 months. So we're doing more intensive training, which covers a range of topics I'll show in a minute, and it's supported by capacity building, and this is supporting organizations who have submitted expressions of interest, and we've had expressions of interest from Albania, Kosovo, Italy, Pakistan, Rwanda, the UK, but these are the countries that we are focusing our support in, where there are Afghan communities who are in transit. Some have visas to go to the US or UK or Germany, others don't know what will happen to them, but there are thousands of people in each of these countries. And quite honestly, a lot of the organizations who do have experience supporting, some experience supporting refugees, have said we don't really know how to do this culturally competently. And so something that we will be doing as an organization is taking them through these types of trainings, so trauma sensitive practice, identity informed practice, you know, what do we mean by a safer space? And then, sorry, that's the wrong slide. And then we go through a bunch of collective healing methodologies, which are really drawing on evidence-based practice, but practices used all over the world by communities everywhere, which are music and rhythm and storytelling and sensorial activities that really help the body to regulate from trauma and can help to bring communities together, bonding, expression, catharsis, playfulness, which are all really, really important for finding your ground as you continue to be on the move or settle somewhere new. Sorry, I'm whistling through. I know we've just not got too much time. Something that may be useful to some of the organizations in this group is a short form introduction training, which is really the key principles from our longer term training, which is focused on setting up safer spaces. And so we've had about 17, we're doing this fortnightly. The next one is on the 14th of December. They're 3-hour trainings. They're free for participating organizations. And it's really about principles of safer spaces. So we introduce some values-based work. It's some training on trauma, how to work in a trauma-sensitive way, and some key principles of identity-informed practice. And we've had a number of local authorities and schools in the UK attend, also organizations with kind of volunteer mentors. It just can be, it's not rocket science. It's for a lot of people a reminder or a refresher of some core principles that are useful to come back to. So we deliver the training online. I'll share this with you, but there's a sign up here, which is also on the RTI website under Afghanistan response for anyone interested. And our final training of the year is on the 14th of December, but we will deliver some trainings in the new year as well. Just a nice Zoom picture of some online trainings, which, COVID meant that we learn how to do experiential trainings online, but we've tried to make them fun. And then another program that we're delivering is Therapeutic groups. So as David's described, since the beginning of RTI, there have been community spaces where therapeutic work has happened with communities. And this has ranged from women's groups and couples works and men's groups and mindfulness of children, all sorts in kind of emergency frontline settings and then in more urban settings. And during COVID, we decided to pilot if we could run online therapeutic groups, and we have found that they have proved to be incredibly powerful spaces for group members. And primarily what we do is we provide psychoeducation and grounding work and just tools that help people to come back to an internal safe space to support people with not acting out from trauma response space, and giving people tools or reminding people of tools that support them, especially for communities that people continue to be on the move. It's also been a very powerful accompaniment. There's been many people in groups who have moved, from a camp to a city, who have been street homeless, who have moved country, who've been pushed back. And even if they haven't been able to attend some weeks, they have stayed in the group, and they have had a group, colleagues in the group and the therapists bear witness to them, but they've also had this anchoring space that has supported them through a huge amount of change, which is something that they've really felt has been of huge benefit. And the focus is on stabilization and grounding. We do not unpack trauma or go directly to trauma, but the spaces are very much group led. So as the group culture builds, themes emerge and group members decide what it is that they want to bring. And RTI hires associate therapists who are trauma informed already, but we provide training and supervision too. So just to be aware, this information is on our website, but if you're working with people who might be interested in joining some of these groups, there are groups that are in Dari and Farsi, some groups, creative therapy groups, music, movement and art in English with a translator. And there's groups for men, women, and then young people who are over 16, and also the Hazara community. And I just wanted to mention, because some colleagues earlier raised this, that we have been contacted by some child and adolescent and creative therapists based in London and Bristol who are very keen to do some in-person work, but didn't feel that they could practice online. So if you reach out to me, I've put my email here, I can connect you with them. And I know that they'd be willing to come to schools or community centres, and we could explore if they need supervision. RTI could potentially provide that. What hasn't, interestingly or not surprisingly, been taken up is the Help the Helpers, which are humanitarian wellbeing spaces, and these are just spaces to really resource frontline workers or anybody providing support at this time. Not surprisingly for helpers, people have not been taking this up despite expressing interest, but the spaces remain available if anyone is interested. And finally, on our website, this is something that we created during the first pandemic and lockdown. We created a whole range of psychosocial free online resources. There's videos and there's PDFs like the one now. They're in Greek and Arabic and Farsi and English. But for people, these can be watched or used or downloaded from a phone. They describe that they take you step by step through activities, and they describe like why they're useful. So for any of you, these might be useful resources to share with people that you're working with, and they are designed by our BATNA, which is our early childhood team. So they're very focused on activities for children and caregivers together. And there's age-focused activities for children up to 12. I'm not going to read this poem, but I'll just leave it on the screen because it has a nice sentiment, I think, just about accompaniment and friendship and care, which I know the JRAN Forum is showing in abundance at this time.
Thank you so much, Gabriella and Jawed. I'll leave this up on the screen, or you can leave it up on the screen. It's such a powerful summary of everything that you've spoken about, and relationships, community, having people around us that care, and creating safe spaces. And Jawed, really, that was such a powerful and graphic reminder of what trauma is all about and what re-traumatization can be, and can mean. So thank you for sharing that. We probably have no time for questions, but I think I'll take 2 quick questions if there are questions on the screen, or if anyone would like to put up their hand, or Gabriella can take the questions. And Jawed.
Sorry for so much talking, not leaving enough time for questions. All
right, well, in that case, we can move on to the group session, and we're going to come together now as a community in 4 different groups, and the whole point now is to create more impact together, both in terms of what we're going to be brainstorming and bringing our own individual and organizational experiences to the table, and also in terms of how the kind of solutions, if you like, for want of a better word, how we think we can address some of the issues that we think are the biggest challenges. So now we're going to hear from everyone, and we're going to go into breakout rooms for about 20 minutes. Each group will have a facilitator, and you'll be able to brainstorm these key issues that you face in working with Afghan refugees and facilitating their integration, and how you think we can work together to address them. And then we'll come together afterwards to hear the outcomes and to try and pull things together into, right, let's do this. These are the kind of joint actions that we can take together. So over to Michael.
David, I think Danny has a question. I can see her hand up. Sorry.
Question. Okay. Danny, yeah. You're on mute, Danny.
Sorry, don't worry. I'm happy to go ahead with the breakout rooms. I'll ask Gabriella separately another time. You've
got 1 minute, Danny. Go on. We want to hear it.
What I really wanted to know, Gabriella, is you do such an extraordinary amount of work and offer so many amazing services. Are they all offered from in-house, or do you collaborate with other organizations to provide what you're offering?
Thanks, Danny. Great question. So we, in Greece, for example, our main work is training, capacity building other organizations. So they set up the safe spaces now, whereas we used to, but it's through partners and community leaders, people with who are currently refugees as well in Greece. For the therapeutic groups, we have hired associate therapists. So these are freelance therapists who are doing very small number of hours per week with RTI. So who are increasing our team's capacity. And I think most of the other work is in-house, but then there's different colleagues who join for kind of different periods of time as consultants.